Hi, how are you?
Where do we find you?
At home today. Yeah,
We're in
working
Montreal.
from home, rehearsing some shows. I have some songs to learn. So yeah.
We have a new album from you guys coming out,
Yahoo!
coming
Coming
out
out
on the
pretty
28th.
soon.
How do you feel now it's all done and dusted and ready to go?
Oh my God. I don't know. It's like always the same feeling. You're like, okay, like powering up to like so much. It's a bit anxious, anxiety, I mean, for sure. But it's a sense of relief as well. You're like, okay, when you get all the assets ready and you're like, the only thing that needs to happen is, for it to be released into the universe. So there's nothing we can do. Let's just hope that people enjoy it as much as we do.
So this is your second album. What did
Yeah.
you learn from making the first album that helped you with this album?
God, a lot. Well, for sure. The first album, I mean, it was the first time for me as an artist as well that I was releasing an album on my own, meaning that, we hired like, public relationists and
Yeah.
stuff as an assets, but like we are the thinking head behind all of the steps as well. So like to participate in all the steps and all the marketing campaign and all of that, it's really like an asset for us because now we understand how it works. And it was, I'm not going to say easier this time around, but I had definitely had a better idea of like a timeline of what assets that I needed to do and what things that you needed to think ahead as well. Because, that's the musician life. It's like you need to think ahead like 2 years in advance almost. Yeah, that's a bit intense, but that's how it is.
So apart from like ignoring the musicianship side of it, what is each individual member's role in the band?
In 2022, the reality is that when you're a musician, like you just said, it's not only about playing the shows and composing the music, it's way more like there's a lot of things that you need to do. I would say that I am kind of the quote unquote management of the band in terms of like thinking ahead, planning stuff, just doing the socials as well. This is on me. And the girls are really good at, well, I mean, Sarah is taking care of everything that is financial because we have a company now. And so she's taking care of all of that side, paying the bills, managing the credit cards, all of it. So she's really good with that. And also Lisanne is she's good at like, managing the merch side. So like keeping the inventory tight and shipping the merch and ordering more and all that. So that's kind of our jobs right now.
Yeah. It's a growing empire.
Oh yeah.
So going back to the album, like what I know about this album, it feels like a bit more personal in the lyrics,
Totally.
lyrical content.
Totally.
What can you tell me about that? And why did you decide to be more personal on this record?
I think it's because it has to do as well with the pandemic. I feel like this album was written during a pandemic, so it's kind of a reflection of what went down into my own mind, the ups and downs, the addictions coming back, the feeling of like kind of a loss of purpose as a musician, because when your calendar just went empty, you're like, okay, well, what is my purpose? What am I doing with my life? Like I can't play shows, I cannot go see events and shows and just interact with my friends. So it was really for me a lot of anxiety during that time. So I think that's why it reflects a bit more on that. And also I think that at the beginning of Les Shirley, I kind of like I wanted to get as far as possible from my previous project where I was writing more about deeper subjects like relationships and addictions and stuff like that. And the first EP and the first album, I kind of went like, oh, I just want to write about, light subjects and something funny. So that would happen. And now I think I just kind of wanted to go back to those roots. I really enjoy, emo-ness.
But is there a point where you're writing and you're scared to share something that's just a bit too personal? Is there a line that you draw in the sand?
Honestly, not really. Because this is kind of my quote unquote therapy, like writing for me is the way that I find to like evacuate negative thoughts or negative emotions and also just like make sense of what's going on in my head. So for me, I see it like more on a therapeutic side. So no, and I mean, it's inspired by real events most of the time, but it will be as well, tainted with other stuff. So it's not a 100% accurate on my life, but I'm not afraid of, being real for sure.
Was there one song that started this whole project? Was there a song that you wrote and you're like, this is the direction I want to go in with this album?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. I think it was like a collection of songs that just came about, and some songs were written 2 years ago. Some songs were written in the studio. Like the very first day we got into the studio, we just wrote Nothing Compares. It just came out. And so I don't know. I feel like this album, as we were making it, I was still trying to make sense of the album. And once it was done, that's when I saw the big picture and I was like, oh, this is what it's all about. It's about the ups and downs of what we went through the past 2 years. This is exactly what it is.
So why More is More? Why that title? Where did that come from?
More is more. Because this is definitely the Shirley vibes, more is more and less is more. I think this is the energy of the band always. We're always trying to push further and to get crazier and to bring more and more energy on stage. So that was kind of the vibe. But it started as a joke, really, because there's this artist that is in Quebec. His name is Dan Bigra. I don't know if you know him, but he's a pretty big artist out here. And Lisanne got to play a show with him. And that's something that he's always saying, more is more. Because when people are like, we shouldn't play that song, or we shouldn't do this part or whatever. He's like, nah, more is more. So it was kind of like a joke at first. And then I was like, no, this is actually exactly the spirit of this album.
And I've heard you talk about some of the bands that were influencing your mindset while you were making the album. And I heard you mention AC/DC, Def Leppard, Photograph in particular, and Aqua.
Yeah, for Random Call. Yeah, I mean, I am a pop fan, that's for sure. Always been a pop fan since day one, since the time that I could, I bought my first cassette and I put it in my Walkman. That was Aqua. My first love was Aqua. I think I'm a hyperactive person as well, so it really spoke to my child self.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I said that because Random Call, the whole subject of the song really reminded me of their song. What is it called? It's called Dr. Jones.
Yeah.
It's about the same feeling about nostalgia, leaving when the summer is such a special time of the year, such a small pocket of it's hot and warm and you just feel like you have so much energy and you want to do all those stuffs that you can't do during the wintertime. So yeah, it's just embodying this feeling of when this season is over and it feels nostalgic because all the memories that you made through a summer and the people that you met and the places you went, it's always a special time for me. So yeah, that's why I quoted Aqua there.
And I think I'm right in saying that there's a few more pop melodies on this record. Is that right?
Just a few. Yeah, definitely. It's always with Les Shirley, we're trying to find always the balance between, having very popish melodies, but coded into very rock, more rock oriented instrumentation. So that's kind of the balance we have for ourselves, but definitely pop, always there.
So you've got this kind of pop rock thing going on, but you've got the personal lyrics on the album.
Yes.
So how do you think the listener will feel when they get to the end of the album?
I hope that they relate to that feeling of, we all went through this pandemic together and it kind of confronted us with our inner fears and being alone. Sometimes you get to thinking more. And I feel like it's very like a voyage almost, it's going to be up and down. And I feel like at the end, I want them to be like, whoa, what the fuck just happened? Sorry, I said the F word.
Okay. Everybody does.
What the F just happened? I wanted to listen to it again. I need to get into it again. So I can process it even more. I feel like that's the spirit.
And during the pandemic, did you a lot of people when it first started, they either stopped playing music altogether or they seemed to just really written a lot. Like they've been super creative.
Yes.
How was that time for you? How did you kind of navigate all that time?
I think at first, it was very intense, how what like the media would broadcasting that we were going to be like, like confined for like 3 years, and it was very intense and people were dying, and you're like, oh my God, is this the end of the world as we know it? Like really, like I'm losing all of the thing that makes sense to me. So it was I had a lot of anxiety during that time. So I think at first I kind of like, I was not in the mood to write, but then you get to absorb the emotions and then process them. So it came afterward for me, the writing process. And I also got to travel during that time. We did like a road trip with some of my friends. We went all the way out west to BC. And so that as well for me fueled my creativity, because I was like, I cannot stay inside. Like I'm gonna like flip. I need to do something. So yeah, we tried to make the most of it for sure. And I think, yeah, at first I didn't really felt like writing, but then the more the pandemic, I was like, yeah, this is actually the best time. Like we will never probably have this pause again like this. So I need to like make the most of it. So yeah, it came afterward for me. I absorbed it and then boom.
Okay, so with this album, you've got a few people that you brought in to help you with the album. How did you pick those? And tell me a little bit about who else is involved outside of the band.
Yeah, well, I think it's like for the first album as well, we like to go with people that we respect a lot in terms of musicianship, and that we are huge fans of, but not necessarily in the same like musical genre as us, which always brings something new and exciting and fresh to the mix. And it's the same thing with Marie-Pier Arthur. She's a pretty big artist out here, and we are big fans of her work. She's such like she's very like punk in her being, in her thinking, but her music is also super like popish and rock, and it's very nice, the whole vibe. So we just tried. Actually, we had the whole thing. We were gonna go with a different producer at first, and I think one morning the girls just wrote me like, hey, you know what, I think it doesn't make sense to go with that person. I think we should just like flip it all around and go and ask Marie-Pier to do it with us. And I was like, you know what, let's do it. So without even asking her first, we just like not canceled, but we explained to the other person that we were not going to go further with him. And we just asked her, and to our surprise, she accepted, because she never produced an album before. And it was honestly the best person to bring into the studio with us. Like just her input is so important and so accurate. She would always, like when we got stuck on a particular part of a song or something, she would always be like, coming in with a fresh set of ear and just be like, oh, why don't we try that instead? And then it always worked for us. And we brought her in, and we also went with a good friend of us. His name is Ryan Battistuzzi. So we went in the studio, and so it was a good balance for us, because this guy is more like on the rock side and Marie-Pier is more on the pop side. So it kind of balanced itself. And I mean, they knew each other kind of from friends of friends, but they never met. And I think that they also found like it clicked so well professionally. I think they found like a really good musical, like, I don't know, pal in each other. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Cool. Have you played any of these songs live yet?
No. And that's the big question. I mean, the approach we had into writing this album was very different from the first one. The first one was really more about jamming together, jamming sessions. So we really came up with those songs like jamming. But this time around, it was more about like, we fire up Ableton Live, and we just make a loop of like guitar and something, and we just built like layers and layers on top of that. So there's a lot of layers in every song. There's a lot of guitar layers. There's a lot of stuff. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for us to bring that live on stage. But for the launch shows, the one happening in Toronto and Montreal and Quebec City, we were going to have like a full band where we have 2 extra guitar players coming on stage with us and an extra keyboardist as well. So it's going to be a full party. But then, yeah, we have to find a way to recreate that feeling as a power trio. But we were thinking as well, maybe on that tour, bringing an extra guitar player with us that could also play some keyboards from time to time. So,
and you mentioned the Montreal, right? That's going to be at Fairmount.
Yes.
On 24th of November.
Yes.
Is somebody going to be playing with you on that date? Do you have an opener or anything like that?
Just us, but it's going to be the integrality of the album. So it's going to be a crazy show. I think it's going to be a long show, an amazing show. And also Marie-Pier is going to come and feature. She's going to play the bass on some songs. So it's going to be just really like a big party and a big, I think it's going to be really fun, actually.
Cool. And I know you played in Europe recently, right? How was that?
Yeah. That was amazing. Wow. I mean, we're trying to go back in February and in June of this year, of 2023, I mean. But yeah, it was a blast. It was the first time for me that I went touring in Europe with one of my projects, not as a like hired gun for somebody else. So it's definitely a lot of work, but we had the chance to have like a driver, and our booking agent was there acting kind of as a tour manager with us. So it really helped, but it's a lot of work, but wow, such emotions, like, wow.
So the album comes at the end of October.
Yes.
The launch show is at the end of November. Yes. And it sounds like you're already planning further afield. What else have you got planned after that?
Well, we also have a listening party happening on the 28th, the day of the release. And it's going to be at the bar L'Idéal. It's on Ontario Street, corner of Amherst, I think, or Atelican, or in that area.
Okay.
And it's going to be like a 5 à 7 kind of vibe. There's going to be Marie-Pier Arthur there as well to talk about the songs with us. And it's going to be, it's like a panel, basically. And that person is going to, conduct the Q&A, Eugénie Lépine-Blondeau. So that's really going to be really fun. And then after that, for the people that want to stay and party, furthermore, we're going to do a DJ set starting at 9 p.m.
Nice.
So yeah, that's going to be really fun. It's happening on the 28th. And after that, we have a few shows as well scheduled, some tour, and hopefully some festivals next summer. And, yep.
Okay, so what would be in your DJ set?
Oh, God, you have to be there. But it's going to be... it's going to be so much fun. I don't know. I mean, I like to go from one extreme to the other. Super, super pop, super rock, metal, everything in there. I just throw everything in there. And usually the girls are bringing, we have like a drum pad, like the SPDSX Roland.
Right.
And she likes to just like jam on top of it. So it's going to be pretty crazy, I think.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like there's good things coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I wish you all the best with the album release and the touring.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully I'll be in one of those rooms that you play. So I'll come and say hi.
Yeah. Well, see you on the 24th, hopefully, of November. That's going to be definitely a good night.
Definitely. It's in the calendar. All right. Well, nice to meet you. And thanks for spending some time chatting with me.
No worries.
See you soon.